Okay, hello everybody, welcome to today's webinar, Micro-Focus ALM QC Integration with Automated Testing for Reporting and Analysis. Next slide, please. Today's webinar is sponsored by TaskTop. Next slide, please. Today the webinar is hosted by me. My name is Carsten Neisser. I'm consultant at Profi.com, a company from Germany, and who doesn't know this, Germany wants for third time in a row the Vivid Partner of the Year award. Next slide, please. We are very interested in today's speaker. She's from UK. Her name is Tina Dankwart. She's Senior Value Stream Architect at TaskTop Technologies. Next slide, please. Today's live session is intended for all Vivid members, and the on-demand recording, slide deck, and questions and answer will be posted on the Vivid website, visible to all Vivid members. Additionally, today's slide deck, question and answer, and on-demand recording will be made available to you. We will send you the link via email once they are posted on the Vivid website. If you have any questions as we go along, please type and send them in using the question pane. You see it on the right side in the webinar control panel. Next slide, please. Shown is here the picture of the GoToWebinar control panel that usually appears in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. To submit a question, make sure the question pane is expanded and type in your question and click on send, as seen in this screen. Next slide, please.
Oh.
And with that, I will pass to Tina. So enjoy and good luck.
Yes, good morning. Or good afternoon, depending on where you are. My name is Tina Dankwart. I'm a Senior Value Stream Architect for TaskTop. I spent 14 years building solutions in the ALM space. So I started in 2004 with Test Director 7.6 at the time. Then I changed to SaaS, and we were taken over by HP, later HPE, and finally Micro Focus. I specialized in reporting, and later also synchronization has always been a particular interest of mine. I switched to TaskTop in April last year. So that furthered, it suited my interest in integration and reporting. Hopefully your takeaway of today should be how to have your cake and eat it too. So how to use ALM and QC for reporting whilst allowing teams to use whichever automated testing tool they prefer. So test automation is key. The World Quality Report, let me just see whether I can get rid of this pane. No. The World Quality Report key findings for 2018 and 2019 stated that low levels of test automation are holding back quality assurance and testing teams. And yet, so what this means is we actually still only have 40 to 50% of testing automated. The rest is still done manually. Oh, sorry about this. Right. So, but how do we get there? Key recommendations from the 2018-2019 quality report are increase the level of basic and smart test automation, but do so in a smart phased manner. What does that actually mean? So teams are increasingly using their own preferred test automation tools. So how do we deal with this? What does it mean? What does it mean a smart phased manner? People are invested in a specific manner of reporting. So they use ALM mostly for the reporting. There is a lot of capacity for regression tests and unit testing to be automated. Some things still have to be manual intensive, like UAT, but automated testing technology paired with people and process can help deliver it in a smart manner. However, what does that do to your tool chain? So traditionally, we had everything in one stack. There's a new breed of test automation tools that have flooded the market, things like Tosca, but there are lots of other ones as well. There's a shift to allow teams to use whatever works best for them. That seems to be the smarter choice. So traditionally we have this single stack, and now we have a lot of testing tools. Add to that you have offshoring and outsourcing of some of the testing activities, like test factories, and we have decades of mergers of it results in multiple instances. So I was involved in something where we had a large telecommunications company, and they were just on ALM, and then we onboarded other ones on ALM, and that also poses issues for reporting, obviously. So what does this do? How does this impact our reporting? It breaks it, basically. So you have test planning, design, execution, and reporting split across multiple tools. So you don't just have everything nice and neatly sitting in ALM. You now have it maybe in Tosca. You might have it in Azure DevOps. You have some of it in Jira. You have TestRail and so on. So when you want to create your reports now, you have to go and pull Excel reports. You can try and make it all go together. And it's a lot of manual effort. But we still need the same questions answered as before. Are we ready to release? How quickly are defects being resolved? So this is all very nice if you have it all in one stack, sitting there neatly in ALM, but what if half of your defects now sit in Jira? What if, you're doing your testing in Zephyr, for example, and you log your defects there, then you have half your defects there, you have half of your defects in ALM. You might have some of them sitting in Tosca or in Qtest. There's a huge wealth of test automation tools as well as defect tracking tools and so on. So it gets very complicated. And I quite like these two guys. You can't manage what you don't measure, but also you can't measure it. If you can't measure it, you cannot improve it. So let's go quickly into ALM reporting. I believe most of you are familiar with it, but it has huge advantages, and there's a very good reason why people are very invested in this. So obviously I spent 10 years of my life dealing with these reports. I was involved in some of the development of these reports, so I know they're good. So, but also, people want to use them. Not only us spent a lot of time developing these, customers also spent a lot of time developing dashboards, and you have your project reports. There's a huge wealth of capabilities, and of course they don't want to give this up. So how do we go from there but allow for more test automation when teams want to use their own tools, whichever suits them? And again, there are good reasons why they might want to use a different test automation tool. Either it's something they're particularly familiar with, it might be personal preference, but it also might have to do with the application under test. Here are a couple of example dashboards taken from ALM. So this addresses some of these example reports that we were talking about earlier. So here we have our unresolved defects by severity, for example. So, again, ALM gives you all of this, but only if the information is in ALM. And that, of course, poses a bit of a problem. So what do we do? The best way that I've found to deal with that is, as I was saying, have your cake and eat it too, or let the baby have its bottle. Use ALM for your test management for the majority, and there are other reasons, by the way, as well, why people are very heavily invested in ALM. Things like e-signature, you cannot have that. You need to sign things off, requirements and so on. So there are good reasons why people want to stay in ALM, and then what you do is you synchronize the tools, the results of the tools into ALM. So be that Tosca, be that other instances of ALM. So we have recently invested a lot in synchronizing ALM to ALM and improving the synchronization, so we can now do things like test steps, which is really important. And we know how ALM builds those. So it was a complicated thing to build, but we now have that capability, because we do find that as much as everybody would love to be in a single stack and just have everything in ALM, for example, it's just not reality at the moment. And even if you have that single stack, so one of our biggest automotive customers, they use mostly ALM and Octane, and yet they have 5 or 6 different ALM instances. And again, you have the same issue. You want to create these reports and you want to create them all in one place. So how do you get these results together? You synchronize them in. And there are 2 different ways of doing that. You can use something, we have something called Gateway. I would probably have to say other tools are available. We have special functionality where we can synchronize anything that allows for a webhook. and take the results and fire them into ALM. And then we have connectors for some of the other big players, such as Jira, there's Microsoft's Azure DevOps, where we have full connectors. What does that mean? A full connector means bidirectional synchronization, and I'll go into this in a little bit more detail. So this is what this could look like. If we're talking about, here I've used Tosca as an example, but you could use anything that also has a similar structure to ALM. So like I said, we have Azure DevOps as well. You can synchronize between the two tools. So let's say you're building your test plan in ALM, you're building your test executions and everything, in Test Lab, you then synchronize that over, you build your tests, your executions out in Tosca, you then go and execute, you test your SAP or whatever it is you want to test, and then you synchronize the test case log back as a test run into ALM, which means you have everything there in one place. So we can have a look as to what this would look like in real life. I've prepared a short demo. So we can see here I've got ALM set up, and we could do something like this where we build a requirement, and let's make it a functional requirement. So again, people use requirements in ALM, perhaps not as much as they used to, but we still want to build our full test plan, including the test coverage and everything in ALM. So I'm going to, this is for Jira, and we're going to just go and synchronize this in. So I'm going to build my requirements in ALM in my tool of choice, because I'm going to need this later for my test coverage and to figure out how many defects are blocking my requirement, right? So I've built this here. Let's have a quick look at the tool itself. So in here you can see, so I've just switched here into Tasktop itself. It's showing me here, it has created, this is my integration. I'm not going to go into any of the technical details as to how I set this up and how I did this, but this is basically just our activity screen that shows me what it's been doing. I can now click on the result, and this is what it looks like in Jira, right? So it has automatically synchronized the item from ALM into Jira. Now, the important thing to know here is, of course, Jira has no concept of requirements. It doesn't understand requirements at all. It's a very different, it's a sort of perhaps a more agile tool, but it's translated this into Epic. If we do this using models, we can translate anything into anything, basically. So what we've done here is we've now created some epics in Jira. Now, if I wanted to use Zephyr for testing, I could do that. I could go and build my Zephyr tests in here. I could then go and create a defect. And let's say, oh no, we've found a bug. And then I'm going to switch. Now, this is very basic. I can do relationships. I can do all those things. I've now done this in Jira. So again, I could use the same. I could use Zephyr. I could use Tosca in here. This is a full integration. So this is a bidirectional synchronization. As you can see, I'm synchronizing items from ALM into Jira. I'm now going to also synchronize back my defects from Jira into ALM. Let's have a look whether this has happened already. Right, so I can then go and find the defect in ALM. So if we just give that a little bit of time. So you can set this up, by the way, to any interval that you would like. So my bug is here already, right? We have here, oh no, we found a bug. It tells me it's done this. The only reason I'm not clicking on this is because I'm running this currently in Firefox, and ALM won't like me doing that. So I'm going to just go into ALM. Now the users themselves, they don't need to worry about how this came to happen. They will work in their individual tools. So you can work in your test tool of choice, and all this stuff happens in the background automatically. So you can see here, what I've got in there is my bug has just come back from Jira. So my reporting doesn't break. Everything is still in one place. I can also here, you can see here, I have synchronized in the URL for that exact object in Jira, so it tells me here what the ID was as well. This was 458. By the way, I did this in both directions. So in Jira the same, right? I synchronized in the requirement ID. Now I can synchronize in a whole manner of things. Whatever I need for my reporting, I can pull from Jira or Tosca or whichever tool it is. Some of the other testing tools, Selenium, whatever it is, you can synchronize things in. Now for the tools that are just automated test tools, again, you have the option to use Gateway, which is a fire and forget, which basically just grabs what information you give it and puts it all into ALM. So you can still use the reporting as previously. Right, now if we go back. So in summary, a balanced approach. It's important to think this through carefully on how you want this to happen, so you can allow more and more of your testing teams to automate without breaking the reporting. Obviously, reporting incredibly important and heavily invested in. So this is what we refer to as a smart transition. 50% of testing is still manual, and we know this is an issue. So yes, tools like TaskTop, like I said, others are available, but we help eliminating the fear of adopting multi-tool strategy. So again, this is not just for testing, it's for other items as well. So we've seen recently other players, for example, in the requirements market, you have things like JAMA or some more traditional tools like DAWs. The multi-tool strategy is no longer an issue because we have integration, advanced and enterprise-ready integration software. Manual reporting, as I was referring to earlier, the whole idea of having to pull reports and then sticking everything into Excel and having to calculate it is only necessary if you don't connect your tool chain. If you connect your tool chain, you can still do all of your reporting in ALM, or you could even pull some of the reports into a separate database as you would like. So you still have your real-time reports, you still have your dashboards, but you can allow people to use whichever testing tools they would like. I went through that rather quick. I think we're ready for questions.
Okay, many thanks, Tina, for a great talk and interesting insights into TaskTop. I really want to encourage people to put questions. I would start with the first question about open source tools or about the integration, because what we really do see is that the world is becoming more heterogeneous. So we have more and more automation tools, more and more requirement tools. So does TaskTop also support other best of breed open source test automation tools like Selenium or maybe JMeter or something else? What can you tell about us?
Yeah. So as long as they allow for a webhook, we can pull the results and feed them into any other tool that we have connectors for. So we currently we have connectors for 60 of the biggest players in the market, for which we have these full connectors where we have a bidirectional synchronization. And for these open source testing tools, we can pull those results and then feed them into any of the ones that we have connectors for.
And do you also enlarge? You mentioned 60 60 tools or 60 connections. Do you also set up more or have something in your roadmap to extend the number of tools? Or?
Yes, we do. So we have the number of tools. We constantly are developing and improving existing and adding more connectors. So we have recently invested a lot in our ALM connectors. Micro Focus are one of our biggest partners. We added things such as being able to synchronize the full the testing piece. It was a big job. It was a difficult thing to do. So we've added things like the design steps, but also the full folder structures. Folder structures are complicated to implement, so we've done that. We have also just added a full test management piece to integrate between ALM and Tosca, so that you can do the full folder structure. And we are continuously developing more connectors or improving. So for our remedy connector, we've just switched to the full REST API and so on. So it's a constant development, and we're constantly working on it. Obviously, when we get a lot of requests for particular tools, then those are the ones we work on first.
Okay, that would also be my next question, if you get a lot of requests, but indeed it's like that you got some requests of customers who want to have this and that connection.
Yeah, that's right. So we do a lot of work. So there's been requests for CA Agile, for example, something we're looking at the moment. It depends very much. So whether we can build full connectors or not depends very much on the API and how ready the API for that tool is. Clearly, ALM is very advanced. The API has been available for well over a decade. So I remember even in Test Vector 7.6, we already had the full workflow capabilities for defects. The APIs are very mature. You have other tools like CA Agile, I hope I'm allowed to say that, which are just not very mature. And so we are limited in what we can do in terms of what we can flow. So a really good example there is Azure DevOps. The API is fairly advanced, but we're just switching to the REST API there because there were performance issues in the API. If there's API limitations, then obviously our hands are tied. We can only work, and that is how we work, right? We simulate being another client, and we go into the API. So we don't do any. You see a lot of tools out there that either go directly into the database. We don't do that. It's messy. It's horrible. Also, a true connector means that it's out of the box drag and drop stuff, so you don't have to configure it, and it's not fire and forget. So you will see a lot of plugins, for example, they are like our gateway, but double. That means it has no memory of what the synchronization was, and that has disadvantages, of course. So it has advantages too, because it's instant, right? Whereas ours is set to say to run every 3 seconds or every 30 seconds, depending.
So as long as I understood you correctly, you can also connect, at least if it has an API, to cloud-based tools like Azure DevOps or something like that.
So we have a full connector for Azure DevOps. That's fully developed. So that's there out of the box, available via drag and drop. So that's all there. We don't have an API that you can write yourself. So we don't do that. We have either the connector or the gateway facility, which is, it listens out, uses a webhook in order to pull in results, for example.
Can you use TaskTop to control the execution of automated tests in best of breed tools?
Yes and no. So I built something recently. So the way to do that, so I built something for ALM, just because obviously I'm quite familiar with ALM. We worked in connection with another vendor who really wanted to launch things from ALM. Now, obviously, ALM has a beautiful ability to write workflow scripts. So in ALM, what we did was we built a button within the test execution. We then launched a bat file through that, and then executed the test wherever it was, and then fired the results back through Gateway. So it worked very similar to UFT. Obviously, it's not a native integration. It's then, we built that button, but of course, ALM lets you do that. We then even changed the test type to that vendor's, that test type. So they had the full piece in there in a very similar way to UFT.
What is about combination with Jenkins or typical CI tools like Jenkins or?
Yeah, again, we use, so with Jenkins and GitLab and everything else, that's all via Gateway. So we can listen out, and then results and commits, be it code commits or so on, are then fired back through Gateway.
Okay, many thanks for your answers. I do see not more questions. So if there is no more question, please raise a hand. If not, I don't think so. So if then maybe we can proceed, or does anybody has a question?
Okay, thank you.
Tina, do you want to add something? Yes.
Nope, that's all from me, I'm afraid.
Okay, then we will go through to the next upcoming Vivid events. The next is quite close. I think next Thursday in 1 week in Portugal. So if you plan a nice trip, go to the local user group meeting there. Details you can find on the website. From Germany, we have the next meeting in 24th of July. It will be in the location of AXA at Munich. So just register if you are in that time quite close to the region. And you can also find me there. So I think this will be 2 hot sessions. Next slide, please. So thank you for attending today's Vivid sponsored SIG webinar by TaskTop. Please be sure to complete the short survey after the webinar ends, as we would love your feedback. And just a reminder that the on-demand recordings and the slide deck will be posted on the Vivid website. In the next few days, you will receive an email with those links. And with that, I would like to thank Tina again and you for your attendance, and have a good day.
Thank you.